Okay, so why am I sitting out here in the middle of the night in my best Canadian clothing, freezing on top of this big battery? Well, it's because this video is all about remote power. Like, how can you power a production away from the electrical grid? If you know anything about the kind of work I do a lot of remote environment stuff. So like I spent 120 days in the Arctic this year. The problem is filmmaking gear is notoriously power hungry, and so I'm always looking for tools that can help me stay out shooting longer. Oh, you We're just standing down. There's a skunk on our interview scene. That would have been an amazing YouTube moment if we just got skunk bombed with all this gear right before a big commercial shoot. Everything just smells like skunk. And we've talked about a lot of batteries before on this channel, from these USB banks that everybody knows about to slightly bigger ones like this that can power, I don't know, a drone maybe a handful of times, to even bigger ones like this that can power a bunch of V-mounts and maybe a few additional accessories, keep you running for an extra day maybe. Today, we're gonna talk about really, really big batteries, specifically this 7 kilowatt monster that I'm sitting on that should theoretically be able to charge a laptop like 100 times or something like that. But who really cares about charging a laptop 100 times? That doesn't mean anything. Now, what I want to know is how many days of production can I get out of a big battery like this? So I'm just gonna start plugging things in until we've got everything I would need to recharge at the end of a normal shooting day plugged in here, and then we'll see how long it's actually possible to keep going off the grid. But before we set up our charging station, we need to be able to see what we're doing. So the very first thing we're gonna plug into this is a light. This is just an old photography backpack, and it just happens to perfectly fit all the accessories you need to build these two lights out into little soft boxes. So then as a diffuser, I'm going to use this China cube, which just folds down flat but then pops out really easily, and then you just stick it to the top of the cube with Velcro. So with these two tiny little things, you can actually get a pretty nice sort of glowing orb of light that you can use as a key light. You can use it to illuminate spaces. It's a really versatile lighting tool. They've been using China balls in Hollywood forever. Hopefully it's not too bright. Yeah, there we go. Now we can see everything that's happening in the area. The light's not overpowering anything. It's not bothering anybody or the neighbors or wherever you are. But we have a nice soft glow over this whole area, and now we can set up like a professional charging station and not worry about losing stuff in the dark. We're about to start plugging stuff in here, but I had to go inside and grab these gloves because it might not look like it, but it is really cold here. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I have this battery. This is a Mango Power E. It's a company that reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to try out some of their stuff. And I'll be honest, I get a ton of offers, and this isn't a sponsored video, so it's not like I'm getting paid to do this. So it's quite a bit of work, and I'm not accepting cash. So I usually say no, but this one was interesting for a couple reasons. One, it is much cheaper than the traditional large capacity batteries that I've seen before. And also beyond that, it has really impressive temperature ratings. Like, this can go down to below -20 Celsius and operate up to, I think, in the 50s. So here in Canada, the extreme heat isn't such a big deal to me, and I don't think I'm gonna put this on a plane anytime soon. But in other parts of the country, -20 is really normal. So having a battery that can keep charging and keep working at those temperatures is a big reason why I said yes to this one and why I'm making this video. So it's January in Toronto right now, and even though there's no snow on the ground, it is pretty chilly out. So it'll be interesting to see if that makes any difference in how this thing performs. So let's start plugging stuff in one by one, sort of in order of how I would need to repower at the end of a shoot day. And probably one of the first things that I would plug in is a computer, honestly, because one of the first things you're going to want to start doing at the end of a shoot is the backups, because it can take a long time. I'm actually going to plug it into a fast charger instead, maximize the ports. All right, so there we go. One MacBook Pro theoretically backing up. No significant change in the total life right now. Still showing over 52 hours. So after you start the backups, probably what you'd plug in next would be your main camera batteries. This is a pretty high power thing actually, so I wouldn't be surprised if the power consumption increases kind of dramatically after we plug this in. One thing I like about this is this can also be used as a table and a seat, so I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so just as I suspected, this made a massive dent in our total power time, and we're down to around 23 hours. That's still a lot of charging time, considering in about 4 hours everything would be completely cycled through. So, you know, 23 hours doesn't mean, oh, you can only last 2 days. It means you can last, you know, 7 4-hour periods, which is a lot of power. That's not going to stay where it is though. So let's keep plugging stuff in, because that's not nearly enough to get me through. Okay, next up, we're going to plug in a triple charger for my DJI Mavic 3 drone. I mean, these days for dock DPs, or really a lot of small run and gun teams, operating drones is pretty much expected as part of the job. So easily go through 3 drone batteries over the course of a shoot day. Not a huge drop off, honestly. That's quite impressive. I thought that was gonna plummet, but it's still kind of consistent. So the DJI remotes, we'll plug that in next. Usually the DJI remotes last a couple of days, but let's just do it anyways. Okay, let's follow that up with my B cam of choice, which is the Sony FX3. I would probably want to have 2 of these plugged in. I would probably want to go through, if I'm using it heavily, maybe 4 of these batteries in a heavy shoot day. Actually, the limiting thing here isn't so much the power output so far, it's the number of ports. So I'm actually going to plug in this extra power bar. Okay, for some more power, I'm also going to plug in these USB chargeable CAME TV batteries. These are standard V-Lock batteries with a whole bunch of USB in and out ports. And the reason I carry these around is they can work with all my accessories and lights. I can power that light off them, I can power my camera off of them, but they don't need a proprietary charger to work. They just power off a USB, so they're a little less, you know, bulky and power consuming. So I brought 2 of these with me. Okay, next we're gonna recharge one of these small anchor batteries. These things are great for just having on the field. Obviously, this isn't something you're gonna actively use during the day as you're shooting. You leave this at your base camp or wherever, or in your car, and then you charge everything off of it. So we'll plug that bad boy. All right, we're kind of running out of ports here, and we actually need to wrap this up because there is light snow falling, so we don't want to be out here for too long. But I'm just gonna keep plugging in a couple more things. I've got some GoPro batteries. I don't use GoPros all that much, but maybe if I was doing a sort of more remote environment shoot or something that involved a lot of vehicles. I've got 2, okay, these are good, 2 Aladdin lights. They're sort of like bougie aperture MCs. I mean, honestly, this is a lot of stuff. I mean, I guess, yeah, let's plug in my phone. That makes sense. Probably at the end of a shoot day, you'd want to charge up a phone. So we'll do an iPhone. Oh, we have my old nemesis, the Ronin. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I love to make fun of these things, but the truth is I actually use them a fair bit. So we'll plug the Ronin in as well. Okay, so after plugging in the last few things, it did go down. It's saying 12 hours of battery time left. As some things charge faster and they get taken off the charge earlier, the total power consumption is going to go down. But it seems to me like 6 hours is a pretty generous amount of charge time for all this stuff. If anything, that might actually be 3 full charge cycles, which means that you could theoretically arrive into a remote location with full batteries and this thing full as well, and then shoot for 3 more nights, totaling 4 days and 3 nights of shooting at a pretty professional standard and not worry about running out of power. And on top of that, you can recharge this as you go with solar panels. Mango sent me 2 of them as well. Obviously, there's no point in getting them out right now, but I'm really excited to check those out. They're like really premium looking, and I think they're actually going to recharge this at a pretty decent clip. So who is something like this for? Well, I could imagine people like me, for example, keeping this around, the kind of thing that you keep in your garage, or in my case, in like a separate storage locker for gear, where when you have that really big road trip or remote shoot, it's the kind of thing that comes out 1 or 2 times a year, but could really make shoots like my tree planting feature film last summer a whole lot easier. The other type of person I could really see using something like this was someone who owned a van, like especially a production van. This would be incredible. It would mean you could not only drive to remote locations and have all your stuff in there, but you could run power for yourself and probably an entire camera team if you needed to for a full day of heavy production. The downsides are that it is expensive, even though it's much cheaper than some of the other options I've seen out there. This is like several thousands of dollars. You can go on the link in the description and see how much it costs at the moment. At the time of recording, it was a really good price. I don't know what it'll be when you see this, but check it out for yourself. And the other problem is the weight. This thing is probably close to 100 pounds. I don't know exactly what it weighs outside the box, but it arrived at my house on a pallet. So if you are looking for something that you can just sort of carry around in one hand, it's not gonna happen. It's got a big burly handle on it and you're wheeling this thing, or if you are carrying it by yourself, it's for really short distances because it is heavy. So one logical question you might have is how long does this thing take to charge? Because I thought it was gonna be plugged in for days, but actually it charges to 100% in like an hour and a half. So if you're worried about it being plugged in forever, don't be. This thing is really quick. Oh, and also the battery has a 10-year warranty, which is crazy for a new company. So even though this is a new company to me, the fact that there's a 10-year warranty on this battery might make you feel a little bit better about the steep price tag. But I'm seriously impressed. I don't know what I thought would happen in this test. I didn't really know if it would be able to handle all this electronics. Plus there's a light on there right now. Like, let's not forget that it's also actively powering a light. With the amount of power draw on here now, you could probably plug in several lights actively at the same time. So like you could set up a charging station and be doing a remote interview with lights if you wanted to. And actually, speaking of lighting setups on external power, I remember watching the Andiax video where they lit up like an entire forest using a big battery, and I'm pretty sure it was quite a bit smaller than this one. So there are a ton of creative possibilities if you're able to get your hands on a big battery like this. So it's super cool, link in the description, all that. If you want to go into more advanced professional things about how to run remote locations, how to run backup programs, how to set up complex lighting setups with different levels of gear, my documentary cinematography course is opening again on March 4th. So get on the waiting list if you're interested in that. This video isn't for the course, it was just for fun to see what's possible, and as it turns out, a lot is possible. So see you guys next time.